What happens when a goofy little Disney movie that no one believes in becomes a cult classic? Join us today as we untangle Not Just a Goof, a documentary that gives a goofy movie the flowers it deserves. And stay tuned to learn which cult shows and movies that we believe should get the documentary treatment. Let's get started.
Not just a goof.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you excited to watch this documentary?
Look, I've always wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, so any opportunity for me to watch a documentary, especially one covering like something I loved growing up, sign me up every time.
Yes, well, I completely agree. As classic 90s kids, like
Yes.
90s Disney kids,
Yes.
I was here for it. I just wanted to learn more about the behind the scenes, the inner workings of this film. So that's why I was excited to learn more about it. So tell me, Reggie, what did this documentary do well? Why did we love it?
So, in my opinion, like the interviews, like the behind the scenes interviews with the creators of the like in the cast and crews of a Goofy movie, those were amazing to hear their insights, to hear their motivations, to to be able to think about the movie and then be able to see the scenes that they were referencing and see the amount of like intent and thought they put into it was amazing. Also, like it was a very emotional like documentary. Like would you
cried.
agree with that?
Yeah, I cried, y'all. I cried at the end.
It was very emotional because like as I said a second ago, like you could see and you could tell the intent, like the intention that went into making a Goofy movie, not just another like Goofy short or just the like they were trying to add depth to a character who had been seen essentially as a clown.
Mm-hmm.
So to throw in the element of him having a son and them trying to figure out the relationship, like to figure like to be able to see them just like we want to make sure that people leave this movie seeing Goofy as someone who deserves to be respected, someone who is full of love, and someone who's a great father.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing that. What about you?
Yeah. I would say one other thing that this documentary did well was that it told the underdog story.
Yes, for sure.
It was like the little, I think they said this in the documentary. It was like the little engine that
The
could.
little movie that could,
Yeah,
yep.
the little movie that could, because it was coming off of the heels of like Lion King, like
Yes.
some of the
Oh, that was
like
great.
true Disney classics, especially for that time period.
Mm-hmm.
So to be this kind of smaller movie, kind of off to the side, it was really punching above its weight class. Like, and it knew it at the time, but it didn't really know how much it was going to have to punch above its weight class. So I enjoyed being able to see it, how it was made, how it was treated in comparison to some of those other
Yes.
movies, and got to see like that behind the scenes, how the sausage is made when it comes to how studios treat different projects.
So
yeah.
let's segue to like that treatment. Like that was a big surprise, like to see how badly a Goofy movie was actually treated. I mean,
Yeah.
Goofy's one of their marquee characters,
Yeah.
right?
So this movie was directed by Eric, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Eric is the nephew of Kevin.
Yep.
And Kevin is the director, or Kevin Lima. He's the director of a Goofy movie,
Yes,
right?
that's-
So we got to hear from them directly about how all of this played out. So they were some key characters in this film to kind of tell the story of how it was made.
Yes.
But there were also other key players in here, such as who?
You had Jeffrey Kratzenberg, you had Bill Farmer, you had Jason Marsden. I don't know why I can't say his name right now. You had a lot of like just unsung individuals who you had never known participated in this film. We talked about in one of our previous videos. Bruce Smith showed up. That was awesome. We were just like, we are definitely talking about Bruce Smith in this next episode when we cover this film. So like, it was cool to see just all these different players who had a hand in making this cult classic. But also like it was crazy to see like it felt like there were people who didn't want the movie to succeed, truthfully.
Which is why I said, it was cool to see that storytelling of how it was the little engine that could, the little movie that could, and how it overcame and how it grew in popularity. Like, it wasn't necessarily an immediate hit.
Yeah.
Like, it flopped at the box office, honestly. Like,
For
it was not
sure.
on our top 90s movies, animated movies of all time, movies at that time, when
Correct.
Lion King was, and they
Yeah.
came out around the same time. But if you think about today, how the love of it has grown and grown and grown exponentially, like it's wild. So,
What's wild is it's been 30 years.
yeah,
And,
that too.
I think one of the coolest moments that they had in the film was like towards the third act of the film. They started like in the third act of the film, as they wrap it up, they were showing how like a Goofy movie had like a huge like surge in because of home video and DVD and the Disney Channel, and like how it became like that classic to us, to our generation, because they said, you know what, we're going to get it out there. And they underestimated how powerful video would be.
Yeah.
So like it feels like it goes to show you, like, especially the creators are out there and those filmmakers who are really working really hard right now. Keep busting your butt, because you just never know what could be your great hit. And just because it's doesn't make a huge splash the way that people feel like it, i.e. Captain America, Brave New World, doesn't mean that it's not a fantastic film.
I agree.
So, Erica, what surprised you when we were watching the film?
Actually, quite a few things surprised me. So, one, I was really surprised that a lot of the animation was like outsourced to.
Yes. Ooh, I didn't even think about that. Yes.
Yeah, that was really surprising. So, they were doing animation for this film in like Australia and in France and like all across the world.
Continental.
Yeah. So, the genius of Kevin Lima and his team, all the entire team that worked on this film, cannot be understated, because they had a huge task ahead of them. So having to use translators to really get across like nuance of script writing
Or
and
the
like
taping,
the scenes.
or-
Yes, and
yes.
him having to do tapes
Had
to
to
mail the tapes.
Had to mail the tapes
Yeah.
across the world to make sure there was a certain look to things, or
Yeah.
to make sure that they were animating the characters properly, or even like the inflection. And like he was talking about how he had like he would record a tape and be like, wait, well, actually, he just sent it. Now, oh wait, I actually have a different note. So like, I could just imagine that being really frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, some of the challenges that I feel like they had to overcome were quite surprising. So that being one, just the international nature of it, and then with that, and they did that because they had so many budget challenges.
Yes.
They can do the animation and stuff a lot more cost effectively, a lot cheaper in those other markets than they could have done here in the United States. So the budget challenges were great, and even though they had all of these challenges, it felt like they still continued to pull back even as the project went on and on longer.
Yeah.
Like them getting demoted and like kicked out and put into like an abandoned like building, or like a little abandoned room. I felt like, man, the disrespect,
Well, what I saw, what I gathered from it is that like they were banking on Lion King. That's that's what I took away. They were banking on the Lion King being success. That a Goofy movie was just kind of like, you know what, we'll get to you. And it very much echoed that energy. And even Kevin himself was just kind of like, yeah, we were kind of second to the Lion King until it got finished.
Yeah. But I think that one of the themes that Kevin shared was that I think there was freedom in that. I think that he was able to push bounds a little bit further, or, be able to tell his story a little bit more authentically.
I like that, yeah.
Because he knew that he wasn't expected to be the Lion King.
True. True.
While he wanted it to be, like, everyone wants their baby, their project to be like an amazing hit.
Yes.
Like, it was okay, like, if it wasn't, it was okay if it wasn't the Lion King. And that allowed him more freedom to have more complex storytelling, to add more depth to characters, and try to do something that was a little bit different. But another thing that was surprising to me was, because you mentioned Goofy being a classic character, right?
Yes.
He's one of the Fab Five.
Yes.
So he's a classic character, and people were upset with Kevin, for the direction that they were taking Goofy. And I found that to be really interesting. What do you think?
Like, he wasn't goofy enough. Like, and I just thought I thought it was crazy that people were upset that he wasn't just a gag character that they wanted to make him. I mean, they already had a Goof Troop, so they had already set the stage for Goofy to have more depth. Because I mean, a Goof Troop is not necessarily like just a bunch of Goofy shorts where he's just being goofy the entire time. It's about his relationship with his neighbors, with his son, like trying to be a good dad. So I felt like that from a timing standpoint, it really made no sense about people's uproar. It didn't make sense because they'd already sowed the seeds for this story, and then for them to say, you know what, let's be even more timely. Let's make this a '90s film. Let's make this about the music and the era, and that was one of the surprising parts for me too. Actually, talking about like the songs that didn't make it and how they got to Tevin Campbell, got to Tevin Campbell and his like influence on like the man did those some of those songs in like 2 takes. Okay, I
Genius.
like just I mean creative force. So, but it was surprising that they really were upset about Goofy not being a goofball.
Yeah, that's when people want to typecast you and keep you in the box. Break the mold, baby. Break the mold every time.
Agreed. So we got the behind the scenes of a Goofy movie, but what other like shows or movies would you love to see how those movies were made or shows were made?
I've got one, and I feel like I don't know if you would consider this a cult classic, but I love this movie, and I would want to see more of it. And I'll give you a hint. Bridgerton ran because this movie walked. Roger and Hammerstein Cinderella.
Ah, yes, yes, I understand it now. I understand it now. Yeah, I agree with you. That would be a very interesting documentary to see for
I
sure.
mean, and I don't because it had so many huge stars
For sure.
that were in it. It was multicultural. Like it was ahead of its time.
For sure.
It was ahead of its time in so many ways within the casting, the music, just the take on it, like the songs, like everything about that movie. I just love it so much. I can watch it all the time. I can watch it every week. I love it so much.
She could, and I get what you said about the connection to Bridgerton. Like that was one of the first like films that was taking something like iconic like Cinderella and putting a different spin on it. Like not being afraid to cast who they felt would be able to best portray the characters, regardless of race. And put that out there, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's what happens with Bridgerton. Like they are just like, look, we're just trying to tell a compelling story.
And as long as you do it with taste and class and thoughtfulness and respect,
Yeah,
I think that, for your fans out there, we talk about, I know we're kind of getting a little off, but this is Tangled Fandom and this is what we do. But, you think about cosplay and all of that stuff. Like people love various sort of characters
and
and
mashups. Yeah,
they might not fit, the the gender or the gender identity
that's a
or
big
the
yeah,
race
that's a
or
big
things like
thing in the
that of
community.
those characters. But if you love that character and you can dress up or you can take on that character in a respectful way,
Yeah,
then do it. Do the things that you love, like just do it with respect and care. And that's just an aside note. But again, Cinderella, Roger and Hammerstein, Cinderella. I mean, Whitney Houston, Brandy, like what? Whoopi Goldberg, like come
yeah,
on now, this is great.
yeah.
So that's one. What do you think? What's one for you?
So for me, it would actually be a TV show. I would love to see like a documentary behind the scenes of how Static Shock was made, and I mean really like in depth because it only lasted for 4 seasons. But you talking about being a cult classic. Static is definitely a cult classic, especially to the blurs who love black superheroes. Like he was one of the first black superheroes that we saw on television that looked like us and that was our age. That was a teen, that was young. So I would love to see just like the beginning of like trying to pitch the idea to to WB executives and maybe like seeing like Dwayne McDuffie like alive and talking about like that process and seeing all the different players but like more in depth. And there's a few clips of different things that have been unfinished, but I would love to see the story being told end to end on what happened. And I'd also throw out Teen Titans as well for similar reasons. Like
Yep.
I would like to see kind of why it didn't get season 6, why what actually went into making that show because it was a hit, and then I guess now Young Justice because it's in the same boat. But I digress.
So let's give a few recommendations of we talked about some things that we would love to see. And we might have to go rooting around to see if we can find anything on these that we've brought up. But what are some documentaries for our viewers that we can recommend that if you loved not just a goof, you might like these two? Do you have one?
Okay, I actually have two off the top of my head.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is the one I mentioned earlier in this episode with I Know That Voice. I Know That Voice. It's on Amazon Prime. It is an amazing behind the scenes look of what goes into voice acting. And I remember showing it to Erica the first time, and she was just like, I want to be a voice actor. Like, I remember just seeing her, like, light up, and she's like, wait, these are the people behind, I didn't know that. Like, I never knew what they looked like. And I feel like when we were watching, not just a goof, like, some of that same energy was coming out, and she was just like, oh, that's Bill Farmer? And, like, I just love like giving people behind the scenes an opportunity to shine. So that's a great one for me.
I would recommend Light and Magic for the Star Wars
Yes.
folks out there.
I love that one.
And I'm not even a Star Wars girly, like at all. Like I'm not truly. But I really enjoyed hearing the story of George Lucas and how they put it together and all that. So I think that would be a great one. I think that one's also on Netflix.
The Light and Magic, I think, is on Disney Plus.
Disney Plus?
Yes. Okay,
Disney Plus. So check that one out if you like Star Wars, or if you're just interested in behind the scenes stuff, because they went through some stuff too. It's funny. Like these studios, everybody thinks that they got so much money and like they do all this stuff, and these people are literally. They will swear that they are putting together these films with tape and
shoestring budgets.
Yes, because it's just I don't know, but it just also makes you just think about like in our real world in life, like how you perceive companies and perceive things like, oh, you think that they have all these resources and all this money and all this stuff. And behind the scenes, they are really just out here doing the best that they can.
So that's it for today's episode. Please remember to subscribe and like, and drop in the comments which cult classic you believe should get the documentary treatment, or any recommendation of documentaries that you think we should watch. So until next time, keep embracing the fandoms you love, and we'll see you real soon.